Christmas and the unknown traveler. Journey and search. Life is like a journey. It can be very long or tragically short. It all depends on the choices we make, the illnesses we face, or the unexpected situations that appear without warning. A journey that can be pleasant, fun, full of happy moments, but which can also turn into a difficult, burdensome passage. However, even in the midst of everything, there is always something to learn. Because on this journey, we learn to cope with problems, to appreciate what is good, and to find meaning even in what seems to have none. And whatever the situation, we usually don't want the journey to end. Although, inevitably, it has a final destination. In this story, we will follow a character who could be a man or a woman of any age. We will call him the seeker of the invaluable. We immerse ourselves in the journey of someone who, throughout the entire year, did not find the satisfactions that life usually gives, or that he himself expected. His expectations were great, especially in those things that are not bought with money, but in finding something that would bring him true tranquility and inner peace. All of this happens in the middle of a world overwhelmed by the noise of the season. Music that, at some point, can stop sounding joyful and become noise, become emotional stress, or even spiritual exhaustion. Our character runs from one place to another, trapped in endless traffic. While many go on vacation, others rush to shop or simply wander, trying to decide what to do with their time. It is also a time of internal reflection. Happy faces walk the streets, but behind many of them hide hearts quietly broken by the disappointments experienced during the year. Even so, there are also eyes with a shine that rivals the stars. Eyes full of hope, because they have carried many problems, but they trust that the next year will be better. Many don't know what they truly need to enjoy Christmas or the closing of another year. And others, despite knowing and experiencing so much, still haven't truly found themselves. Any resemblance to the reality of whoever pays attention to this video is pure coincidence. The contrast and the void. It was a cold night in mid-December. The city was wrapped in millions of lights, but that brightness was nothing more than a luminous mockery for our character. He had arrived in the city looking for what money cannot buy. He moved slowly in the rush hour traffic. His face was a mask of anxiety, of desperation, and of fatigue that went far beyond physical exhaustion. It wasn't just the weight of his schedule, it was the weight of a life. A life that, despite his achievements, felt empty. The Christmas lights reflected in his car window but failed to penetrate his eyes. Eyes burdened with a tangle of feelings that seemed like a labyrinth with no exit. He was carrying a very heavy cross, and didn't even know it. This man or woman, young, adult, or elderly, represents the person who has everything and yet feels empty inside. He also represents the one who fights to get it all and ends up exhausted. And he also represents the one who, even being surrounded by friends or family, feels lonely, sad, melancholic, especially during these dates that awaken such mixed emotions. He is the stressed entrepreneur, the saturated executive, the tired worker, the lonely migrant, the parent who struggles every day, the young student who lives only on dreams. This story is the log of his 12-day journey, a journey that goes from the recognition of that cross, to the liberation and the discovery of the priceless gift, the trap of consumption and expectation. He had promised himself that at least this time he would buy peace. However, social and family commitments dragged him into the chaos of a crowded shopping mall. The store windows screamed promises of instant happiness. The air was saturated with the smell of artificial pine, the constant sound of cash registers, and the long lines of hurried shoppers. Suddenly, he found himself paralyzed in the toy aisle. That gift was not for a child. It was a desperate attempt to buy the time he hadn't given, to silence the guilt for broken promises. This is the trap of consumption. It forces us to believe that the value of a gift is directly proportional to its cost, and that happiness can be wrapped in a box. December is a very special month. There are those who smile and enjoy not only because of the season, which is already cheerful, but because they are going through a moment of satisfaction for what they achieved during the year. They cannot ask for more than to enjoy time with family, the typical food, the grapes, the apples, and hope that next year brings them even more of that fleeting happiness, adorned with colors, lights, and a carefully decorated tree. But there are also the others. Those who are only happy when they see the street decorations, because at home they will not have a holiday dinner. Those who wait for a miracle, an invitation, a dinner, an unexpected gesture. And there are those for whom the year did not bring what they expected. Another year of sadness, of economic struggles, and, in many cases, the loss of a loved one whose memory will become evident in the empty chair that no one will occupy. And it is the time when many feelings and thoughts come to us, such as the tyranny of the you should, You should have bought the big house you wanted, you should have bought the vehicle you deserve, you should have replaced the one you always use and that is giving you problems, you should have gotten a promotion, you should feel grateful, you should forgive. Emotional debt and self-forgiveness. The cost of appearance. This social and family pressure is what generates the emotional debt. The rich man stresses himself to maintain the illusion of his success. The struggler goes into debt for the illusion of belonging. Both pay the same price, the loss of peace. True generosity is not measured by cost, but by the genuine sacrifice you make with your time and with your presence. The myth of perfection is the enemy of the real Christmas. True celebration is messy, imperfect, and often uncomfortable. And for that very reason, it often turns into an affliction of the spirit. This year, he had promised himself that he would buy peace, understanding, and satisfaction, and that he would not be carried away by all those feelings we mentioned earlier. He sought refuge not only for himself as a person but also for his soul. However, the pressure of the environment resonating everywhere and the duty he felt to fulfill commitments to his loved ones did not give him peace. This impulse led him to try to find comfort and satisfaction in material things for all the feelings that troubled him, seeking relief from the sorrows and worries left by a year that had given him joys, but also more sadness, and the inability to find answers to many questions. By the end of the day, the seeker of the invaluable only had bulky bags, and an exhaustion that was not physical. He had spent more than he wanted, and felt less peaceful than he hoped for. He realized he hadn't even bought everything on the list, for the people the gifts were intended for, and most painful of all, he found no meaning in the money he had spent. Changing the should to the can. Suggestion for visual: split screen / animation of 2 columns being written. Divide a page into 2 columns. In the left, write down the things you feel you should do this holiday season out of obligation. Attend a dinner, buy a specific gift. In the right, rewrite only the ones you can or want to do with genuine love. Commit to eliminating at least 30% from the should column. It is an act of peace. An act that frees you from the slavery of expectation. The brilliance of the wrapping only hid the emptiness of the seeker's intention. He had freed himself from part of the material burden, but his soul still carried the weight of unspoken words and unforgiven offenses. How can you let go of a pain that has lasted so long and feels so justified? Mixed feelings, guilt and resentment. The seeker was at home trying to organize the gifts when his phone rang. It was a short, cold, distant message from that family member he hadn't forgiven in years. Resentment rose in his throat. The Christmas music, mixed with that dull pain, was the breaking point. When he looked out the window, from the 4th floor of the hotel where he had checked in, tears rolled down his face. He didn't understand how, in the middle of so much excitement, he could feel so sad. He watched people walking on the sidewalks, well-bundled, smiling. Others looking at store windows with hope. The atmosphere was festive. In contrast, 2 people approached a car asking for a coin, while a woman carrying a baby wrapped in a blanket was selling the last few newspapers she had left. Resentment is a toxic energy that forces you to relieve the pain. It was as if the seeker had carried a bag of stones all year long. Now in December, that bag weighed double. Prolonged bitterness not only destroys inner peace, it also wears down physical and emotional health, making you irritable even with those you love. The anchor of self-punishment. Christmas and the end of the year invite us to stop and reflect. But that reflection often turns into a severe judgment against us. We criticize ourselves for unfulfilled goals, money lost, words spoken or held back, mistakes made, or those we couldn't avoid. Survivor's guilt appears. That uncomfortable feeling of having something while others fight for almost everything. And then the memories come. That person who offended us, or whom we offended, the one who made us happy, or whom we disappointed. The family member who passed away this year and whose absence will be felt in the empty chair at the table. The divorce document is on the living room table. The people who were impossible dreams in our lives. The music of yesteryear that, far from comforting us, punishes us with nostalgia. We punish ourselves for not having developed our full potential. For the goals of the previous year that were not met. For looking at the bank balance and discovering that it is not enough. Or, conversely, we feel momentarily happy about the bonus or the holiday check. A brief happiness decorated with lights that go out the next day. It is a time of contrast. While some celebrate, others cry. While some toast, others sigh in silence. While some laugh with family, others feel alone amidst the roar of fireworks. Many try to tear down an invisible wall. That wall that prevents them from forgiving or loving as they should. Forgiveness must begin with yourself. You cannot give what you have not given to yourself. Recognize that your harshest judge looks at you from the mirror, and that the love you are looking for is already within you, even though life experiences and societal expectations have prevented you from sharing it. Question for the soul. Hope, humility, and service. A question for the soul. If your resentment were a contract, what would be the expiration date? Are you willing to keep paying the price of bitterness in the new year? And what personal failures from this year prevent you from fully accepting yourself? The seeker of the invaluable decided he would no longer pay that price. He picked up a pen and a notebook. He started the exercise, letter of release of burdens. On one page he wrote down all the pain, guilt, failure, and resentment of the year. He noted the offenses he had received, and also the offenses he had committed. The act of emptying his soul onto paper was a first step toward liberation, understanding that his peace depended on a decision that seemed impossible. Forgive without demanding justice. But was emptying the bad things enough? That void needed to be filled with something unbreakable, something eternal. Gifts that cannot be bought. Hope. Exhausted and with empty hands, after shedding his resentment on paper, the seeker sat in a gloomy park. From afar, he observed an elderly man selling newspapers on a corner. The old man had no luxuries, no comforts, no visible possessions. But he smiled with a serenity so deep it seemed unreal. The contrast was brutal. All the material things belonged to him, but the peace belonged to the old man. The seeker of the invaluable understood in an instant that the elderly man possessed one of the gifts that cannot be bought. Hope. Hope is not a naive vision of the future. It is not superficial optimism. It is the deep certainty that the pain and failure of the year that ends do not define your destiny. It is the spiritual anchor that keeps us firm in the storm, the scaffolding that supports us in the ascent of our journey. Hope gives us perspective. It allows us to see the year not as a collection of failures, but as a school of learning. Every mistake was a lesson. Every trial strengthened soul muscle. The seeker approached the old man and bought a newspaper, searching for a word, a sign. The old man simply smiled calmly and said, "The most valuable things never have a price, son." 12. The map of inner strength. Suggestion for visual, text overlay listing the 3 bullet points. Identify 3 difficult trials or painful moments that you overcame this year. Write down what value or strength, patience, faith, perseverance, each one left you with. This will show you that you already possess the foundations of hope. The seeker understood that the answer to his emptiness was outside of himself. The hope he saw in the old man was not a fleeting emotion, but the fruit of a deep source. Where could he find that inexhaustible source that would give him unbreakable peace? His path would take him to the only place where true humility can be found, the source of peace and consolation. Peace born in a fragile cradle. Searching for the source of that inexplicable peace, the seeker of the invaluable entered, almost on impulse, a church. He stopped in front of a humble nativity scene. The contrast between the ostentation of his life and the greatness in the simplicity of that birth hit him with the force of a revelation. Why did the Creator choose the most vulnerable form, a baby? In the simplest place, a manger of straw, as an antidote to the pomposity of the world? Conceptual development, the antidote to anxiety. The manger teaches that real peace does not require material security. It requires humility, love, and receptivity. It frees us from the idea that we need to be strong, perfect, or self-sufficient to be worthy. The message is presence, not absence. Peace is not guaranteed that there will be no problems in the year ahead, but the deep certainty that you will not be alone in the midst of them. 14. A question for the soul. If peace was born in such a simple place, why do you insist on looking for it in complex, expensive spaces full of demands? What area of your life needs to surrender to simplicity today? The manger meditation exercise. Suggestion for visual, gentle, quiet imagery. Find 5 minutes of stillness. Close your eyes and imagine the nativity scene. Feel how that atmosphere of humility disarms you. Allow that simplicity to fill your empty spaces, and put out the accumulated anxiety of the year. If peace was born in such a fragile place, could it be that you don't need to be strong to receive it either? The seeker felt a tear slide down. He needed to understand that embrace. A comfort that was not superficial or fleeting. An embrace called consolation. For him, comfort had always been something temporary. A drink, a purchase, a compliment, a momentary distraction. But the comfort spoken of by faith is an embrace to the soul that whispers, "Your pain is seen, and you are not alone." The deepest consolation is usually found in service. He felt a sudden impulse to act. Consoling the other to console yourself. Depression and emptiness feed on self-obsession. But when the seeker placed his attention on the pain of another person, through the exercise of consolation and service, his own wound began to become smaller, more manageable. By reaching out, he received unexpected strength. It is the eternal spiritual principle. To receive, you must first give. Quote for reflection. No one who has lightened the burden of a friend has failed in this life. Charles Dickens. The consolation and service. Perform a completely anonymous act of kindness these days. It could be helping a neighbor, paying for a stranger's dinner, or sending a message of encouragement. Self-forgiveness, joy, and new beginnings. Consoling the other to console yourself. Kant. The act of giving without expecting anything in return is the catalyst for personal healing. Helping another person had given him more peace than everything he had bought. For the first time, he felt that the cycle of guilt and resentment was breaking. But then the inevitable question arose. How could he heal his own wound if he didn't first forgive himself? Forgiveness as an act of rebirth. The seeker returned to his letter of release. He realized that, although he had forgiven others on paper, his harshest judge lived within him. The most difficult forgiveness is the one we give to ourselves. Forgiveness is an act of rebirth because it allows you to be born again, without the toxic history of the past. Forgiveness is not a fleeting feeling. It is a daily decision, a gift you give yourself to be free. The ritual of liberation. Forgiveness must be active and deliberate. It is crucial to forgive the unfairness of circumstances and also the unfair things others did. But it is even more vital to forgive yourself for the failures of the year. Non-forgiveness breaks your relationship with your faith, making you feel unworthy, incomplete, out of place. It is time to repair that relationship. A question for the soul. If a loved one, a friend, or any person made exactly the same mistake as you, would you forgive them? Then why do you deny yourself that same grace? What do you believe you must pay to deserve peace? Forgiving myself, a healing ritual. Find a moment of silence. Take out the paper from the letter of release from the previous chapter. Read aloud the things you criticize yourself for this year. Then declare, I forgive myself for this. The lesson remains, the guilt is gone. The seeker felt the weight vanish from his shoulders. The lightness was so profound, it almost hurt. He had forgiven. He had forgiven himself. But a question troubled him. Would this joy only be temporary, or could it become something that lasted? Beyond the holidays? The dawn of the soul, redefining joy. Freed from resentment and guilt, the seeker experienced something new. It was more than happiness. It was joy. This chapter is the mastery of the soul. We must distinguish joy versus happiness. Happiness is fleeting, dependent on an external event, a gift, a promotion, a momentary achievement. Joy, on the other hand, is an attitude of the spirit, an inner light that exists in spite of the circumstances. It is the dawn of the soul, the joy of the essential. This joy is cultivated with radical gratitude, finding reasons for genuine joy in things that do not cost money, the hug of a child, the warm taste of freshly baked bread, the blessing of health, the company of someone who loves you. He who has little is grateful for what he is. He who has much is grateful for the meaning of his life. Finding joy in purpose. We understand that existence is not accidental, but a valuable gift. Quote for reflection. It is not happiness that makes us grateful, but gratitude that makes us happy. David Steindl Rast. This is a determining key to being happy. So often we complain about what we don't have, without realizing what surrounds us, especially our very existence. The power to give thanks every day when the sun's rays shine through our window, providing us with a new day that represents an opportunity to grow more as human beings. The Journal of Genuine Joy. For 1 week, write down 3 moments or things each night that give you joy, things you cannot buy. This retrains your brain to seek internal wealth. The purpose of the new beginning. The freedom of the seeker of the invaluable was intoxicating. But the new year was just hours away from beginning. He knew the clock would strike midnight, and with it, a new chapter. How could he ensure that this newfound peace would not vanish in the routine of January? The last night of the year, a deep reflection. The night of December 31st arrived. The seeker of the invaluable decided to ignore the social pressure of attending a noisy and superficial party. His New Year's Eve would be a sacred pause. Instead of only preparing grapes, dinner, or common rituals, he decided to dedicate himself to the preparation of the heart. This was the perfect time to conduct a non-judgmental inventory of the year, evaluating not in terms of money or status, but in terms of love, service, and growth. The ceremony of letting go. The key to a good beginning is a good ending. Tonight, he had to perform the letting go exercise. No one can build a new year while dragging the old one. His night prayer would be a transition prayer, surrendering the cycle that was ending, and asking for guidance for the one that was about to begin. Question for the soul. What do you want to let go of before midnight? What resentment, what fear, what guilt do you refuse to carry into the new year? Does it bother you that you can't forgive someone who hurt your feelings or who offended you with their words? Letting go ritual. Write down on a small piece of paper the 3 most painful or frustrating things from the year that is ending. When the time comes, or in a moment of solitude, burn or tear up the paper with complete conviction, saying, I leave it here. My soul enters the new year light. It is not an obligatory ritual or a mystical practice. It is simply a symbolic, personal way to express that something is leaving. Do it as your heart asks you to, but truly feel it in your heart and let it be what motivates you to do it. This is not a formality or an end-of-year procedure, as it will mean a lot for the life you have ahead. And don't just think about yourself, but also about those you will make happy with your change in attitude. At first, they might think it's a form of hypocrisy, but only the testament of hope. You know, the celebration that is within yourself. The fire consumed his past, and his heart felt light. But he soon discovered that burning the past is not enough. He still needed a map for the future. What would he build in the space that had been made free? 23. Purpose in the new year, building inner wealth. He put aside the traditional list of to do or to have, and replaced it with a list of to be more patient, to be more present, to be more generous, to be more grateful, to be kinder, to forgive, to love yourself so you can then love others, to give without expecting anything in return. Remember that not everyone has the same feelings. This is the true purpose, purpose as service. The inner wealth plan. True wealth is built with habits of virtue. Goals must be spiritual, of growth, and of service. This applies to everyone. The one who has much must focus on the ethical and generous use of their resources. There are many who pray that this holiday season there will be traditional food on the table, or that by magic someone will leave them a Christmas basket. While some laugh, others cry. I remember an opportunity when my wife and I were newlyweds, and the typical holiday advertisements were already playing. I needed a job that had been offered to me. I had the opportunity to speak with one of the partners and managers of the company where this opportunity was developing. I knew her for her humility and the charisma she possessed, and I asked her, how would you know what need is? She looked me in the eyes and her answer was immediate, replying, I don't know what need is. Words said with sweetness, but for me, it was as if a dart had been thrust into my heart. I had to remain calm, and it wasn't the words that hurt me most, but seeing who they came from. She was right. She had been born in what we sometimes call a golden cradle. I only thought she should have kept that to herself because the image and concept I had of this person fell apart. I later got the job, and I never felt anger or disapproval because life continued. The one who has little must focus on the creative use of their time and talents, as they may be richer than the one who truly has much. They must take stock of all the creative potential they have, because within their being they carry seeds of the highest greatness and inherited capacity from the divine that make them invaluable. They only have to ask and it will be given to them. They only have to knock and it will be open to them. Undeniably, their effort, decision, and genuine desire to get ahead will drive them to be more responsible, disciplined, and honest, and things will come in the Almighty's calendar, but they will come. Question for the soul. If your list of goals were not influenced by anyone, what would it truly be? What service action can you incorporate into your life every week? Day purpose plan. Create 3 goals for the first month of the year focused on being. Examples: 10 minutes of daily silence. 1 Weekly call of encouragement. 1 Intentional act of kindness per day. See the natural beauty around you. See the qualities and not the defects of others. Forgive and seek forgiveness. Be ye kind. Smile no matter if people look at you strangely. Offer help to those who need it. The to-be list was much more challenging than the superficial to-have list. The temptations of the old world would stalk him at work. The pressure, the noise, the stress, the competition. How would he maintain this new mission when routine pushed him back to his old habits? The testament of hope. The seeker of the invaluable faced the dreaded January effect. That feeling that hope fades in the face of the brutality of reality. Peace is a decision you make every morning. It is not an emotion that happens to you, it is discipline. This chapter is the emergency plan. You need to create a testament of hope that is carried out every day. The discipline of joy. The maintenance strategies are crucial. Faith, gratitude, and forgiveness must become permanent habits. The soul needs to be fed daily with simple practices: silence, reading, reflection. The old temptations and daily stress are like a virus seeking to extinguish the light you lit in December. Quote for reflection: "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence then is not an act but a habit. Aristotle. The wall of peace. Create a morning routine of about 30 minutes before starting the day. Say a prayer of gratitude. If you belong to a religion, read your scriptures. If not, practice a healthy discipline. Remember that the best treasures are within ourselves. If not, listen to a motivational song. Part of the message of a good motivator. If time permits, move, jump, walk, breathe. Do not look at your phone as the first action of the day. Break that habit that is consuming people. Much less turn on the television to listen to the daily report of the previous day's tragedies. Do the best for your soul. In this way you will have armor to face whatever comes. Your faith and self-mastery will withstand the blows of the day, and in the end you can finish in peace. He survived December. He had survived January. He had implemented the discipline. Now, was he ready to take the final step and become the light he had found? The gift continues. Live it, share it. The seeker of the invaluable transformed. The legacy of December. He was no longer an anonymous traveler in spirit. He had found the gift and had become it. His life in this new year was the happy ending he always sought. His emptiness had been filled with purpose, peace, and service. The best gift of the year-end was never for him alone, because the responsibility that comes with peace is to share it. This is the legacy of December. Peace as a testimony. Your life lived with serenity and deep purpose is the best testimony for others. It is not about preaching with words, but about radiating the peace that dwells within you. This message is universal for all social classes. Upper class, use power and platform for justice and generosity. Middle class, use time and empathy for community service. Lower class, fight to change your level. You have probably been told that money doesn't matter, but it becomes necessary when you have an emergency or someone in your family or a person asks for your help and you have nothing to give. It may seem comfortable to stay where you are, but necessity presses, and dignity calls. Final commitment. Write a solemn promise for the coming year. For example, my purpose this year will be to listen carefully to my peers before reacting, and I will try to say things in the kindest way. I will serve my neighbor because it is the second commandment. I will not get irritated by things that are not worth it. I will give without expecting anything in return. I will smile more because a good gesture can brighten someone's day. I will be grateful when I see the sun's rays entering the window, because I recognize that time is very valuable. In every action or work I do, I will do it with love, thinking that the result will be for God. My peace will be maintained with the routine of morning silence and one act of kindness weekly. This is your final oath. The gift continues. The new seeker. The seeker of the invaluable 1 year later was living the same season, but now he was no longer confused or tired. On his face, the sincere joy of someone who had found the path was evident. He looked with delight at the happiness of others, enjoyed the music, the decorations, and the beauty that surrounded him. He was no longer the same. He understood that there are things worth more than money, and he understood the true meaning of Christmas. Sometimes he looked up at the sky, and in his heart there was joy that few people know. He knew the season would pass, but that he would continue the next year, knowing himself better, understanding others more, and caring about the pain of others. He would strive to pay more attention to the sound of the wind, and he would raise a prayer of thanks. He was in a restaurant and observed many people smiling sincerely, and other solitary souls smiling falsely. This time, instead of judging them, he felt a deep compassion. He saw a person who, by their appearance, was clearly someone important, but still had a lost look, an expression of silent confusion. The one who had been the seeker of the invaluable took out his pen and wrote something on a small piece of paper. He paid the bill, and passing by the stranger's table, looked at him kindly, smiled, and left the note on his table that read, "The peace you seek cannot be bought. It is within your reach. Seek it in silence and prayer. You are not alone." If you identify with this story, remember, Whether you are going through moments of joy, of enthusiasm and charity, through a situation of economic abundance, or moments of pain, anguish, loneliness, or a difficult economic situation, or a loneliness that consumes you, remember that even so, there is always a higher force that has never left you alone and never will. Just let it shape your character, give you the peace you can't find, and the strength to keep going even with tears in your eyes, knowing that what you need or desire and what will build you up materially or spiritually will arrive. Inside you, there is something you don't understand, something that is not filled with fleeting things. Whether you are experiencing worries because you lost your job, and you wonder what you will give your children or your spouse, or maybe you are sick, or the years are already weighing on you, and you remember with nostalgia family members who are no longer here, or the hugs and greetings you no longer receive, and you are tired because you cannot find answers to your questions, remember this: you are not alone. There are many people who feel the same way as you. Cultivate hope and maintain a good attitude. God knew you could. That's why He sent you on this journey and gave you a map to follow signs or whispers that come to your mind. Just seek serenity and you will be able to hear them not with your natural ears, but with the internal receptors within you. If you cultivate and nourish your gifts, if you recognize that He created you to be great, you will understand that you are His descendants, and you will understand everything He promised you before sending you to this earth still stands. Out of love for you, He sent His Son Jesus Christ to preach love, faith, and consolation. Do not lose heart. Do not give up. He knows everything about you. Always remember that He placed a seed of greatness within you. You just need to discover what that is that beats in your heart and confirms what I have just told you. Just be careful not to confuse that greatness with pride. I wish you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous and blessed New Year. Sincerely, your inner voice.